I married that sister. And what happened was 2 years later, I was in a divorce situation. So there was nothing wrong with the sister. I will never speak negative about her. It was that I found someone and we just saw each other on the surface, but we didn't have any type of deep compatibility. And we didn't discover that until after we were married. And after we were married, we didn't like typical fights where husband and wife are like divorcing because it's all this emotions and people are yelling at each other and it's just like really, really messy. It wasn't like that. We were just mutual realize that we are not connected. I mean, the stuff she would say and the stuff I was thinking of, it's like one day she'd like say, we should sell all our belongings and just be like nomads going from Europe to here to there. I'm like, that sounds good, but not realistic. And then her world was completely different than mine. And I realized that we're going two different directions. So did she. And we say, if we have children, it's going to get really, really complicated. So we decided mutually to separate. Even though all that emotions weren't there, it still hurt me more than anything that hurt me in my life. And after I experienced that, I said, I never want to go through this again. I'm going to do everything I can so I never feel this pain again. So I can only imagine people who had really bad experiences through marriage, what they feel like. They're probably 10 times worse than that. So you have this fear of ever getting married again. You have this fear of ever wanting to, let's make yourself vulnerable so you become into a painful situation. So at that point, instead of blaming her or the situation or all the stuff that happened, I told myself, what could I have done to make that marriage better? What can I do to be a better husband if I get married again? So what I started doing is I started studying these books about how men communicate, how women communicate, how the differences between different types of personalities, the different types of way people do things, how people handle stress differently. All these different layers I never even thought about. I didn't even know it existed. And as I studied and studied and studied, I realized that I think I'm ready to get married. And this time around, I won't fall into the same trap of looking just for surface. I will see something deeper than that. I will find compatibility. So I decided to do the unthinkable in 2001. I went on the internet to look for a wife. And saying 2001 and 2023 is two different worlds, guys. In 2001, the internet is brand new. I mean, most people are using it for most things. They just barely have Hotmail and email and Yahooing everything. No one's barely using it for anything like serious. It's not like it is today. So when you go and say, I'm going to go find my wife or husband on the internet, it was like really, really weird. But I can go through my parents, I can go through the local masjid. I had to go online. As I go online and I'm looking for my other half, I was like, which website works? Probably a question you guys probably asked yourself. Which one of these works? I didn't know which one worked, so I joined all of them. But I don't want to talk to a bunch of sisters. I said I want to talk to one sister, just one. So what I did is I made a very, very detailed profile, exactly what you're going to get if you marry me. These are the pluses, and here's the negatives. These are the things I'm expecting in a wife, and these are the things you should expect in a husband, blah, 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 blah. And I was hoping just one person responds. Unfortunately, well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but I had a problem where 17 people responded. Now, the problem was because I joined all these websites. If I joined one website, I probably wouldn't have 17 people responding, but 17 people responded, and right there I realized the websites were broken. That something's wrong here, that there's no way there's 17 people interested in me. So either they're telling me what I want to hear, or maybe one of them or two of them are actually being sincere and they're telling me the truth. So I need to filter all these people out because I don't have the time or patience or the mental capacity to talk to 17 people. I want to talk to one sister. So what I did is I came up with a series of questions that didn't have right or wrong answers, and I sent it to all 17 sisters. Only one of them answered it correctly. The problem was, I was hoping she lives in California, but she lives in London. It's like, that's really far away. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in pairs, but I don't know where He created the other pair, where He made the other half of me. I assumed, and many of us assume, we hope they're in Northern California. We hope they're Pakistani or Indian or Arab or African American or whatever. You assume and make these false assumptions sometimes where they live right now, what their ethnicity is and what their age is and all these other things. But you don't know that. All we know is Allah made us in pairs. Where is my pair? Allah knows best. And I thought to myself, let me go meet this sister. And I did. and I married her 22 years ago. As soon as I met her, well, let me tell you what happened. I had conversations back and forth with the sister and asking her questions that didn't have right or wrong answers, and I did this for months, for about 3 months. As soon as all the questions had been asked, I said, if I can see her and she sees me, because it has to be mutual, if there's chemistry, I'll know in a few seconds, because all the rest of the boxes have been checked. So when I went to meet her, I said, I want to do everything the halal way. We're going to meet in a public place. And she sat on a park bench. I stood up, and it was really awkward. And we were in a public park, and there was this halal gap, so like social distancing before COVID, right? So I'm like 6 foot distancing. And as soon as I meet her, I knew she was the one. And I can tell from the smile and her shyness, she thinks I'm the one, but we don't know what to do after this point because there's no manual of what you're supposed to do next. So at that point, I got nervous. And I had a little handheld camera with me that I brought only to sightsee, because I said, look, if I want to go to London to meet the sister, it may work out, may not work out. At the very least, let me record a bunch of this footage to send to my friends. Well, while I was sightseeing, I had this camera in my bag, and I totally forgot. And I put my hand in the bag, and the camera was there, and I took it out. And I don't know what to do because I'm just using this as my safety blanket. And she's like, and this was completely unplanned. She's like, what's that for? I said, what if one day we get married and our kids ask us, how did you guys meet? This is the exact words I told her, by the way. And she gets all super nervous. And I started recording that footage from the moment that I met her, literally 20 minutes after I met her, to the day we got married, which was 9 days later. And I presented to her in a movie on DVD with all the things to her, like a movie poster, like a legit, real movie. It's a 2-hour film. I gave it to her after we got married, 5 years after marriage, and her response was, okay, I'll watch it later. I told my wife she's the most hardest person in the world to impress. I've done so many things for my wife, and she's like, okay. But alhamdulillah, she brings me down to earth a lot. So, that 22 years of marriage have been, Allah is my witness, I still feel like a newlywed till today. And I wanted to help others find their other half, and that's why I put myself into the marriage space of saying, how can I give the people the tools they can to get married? Let me tell you guys some of the challenges we have as a person who was a divorcee, now married, but still experienced divorce. As most of you guys have heard some of the statistics, but some of them you may not know, that the divorce rate here in the United States is about 50%. Like non-Muslim. Muslims are not that far off, by the way. But what you don't know is that in California, we're in the top 10 states of divorce. In fact, in California, we're at 60% divorce rate. We're higher than other states. The second thing that you may or may not know is that a lot of these divorces, about 43% of them, are dealing with children involved. And these are children under the age of 18. This makes it quite challenging oftentimes. So it's not just, okay, in my situation it's a lot easier because I can separate, but when there's children involved, they don't divorce their father and they don't divorce their mother. The parents are no longer connected, but they are always going to be connected. And that always makes things a bit more complicated as well. The other challenges we have is that overall in the United States, 70%, contrary to what most people believe, because your experience may make you have one belief to it, but I'm talking about in general, what are most people experiencing? 70% of all the divorces that are happening in the United States are considered no-fault divorce. This is where they have said there was no abuse from the male or female, there was no drugs, there was no abandonment, there was no alcohol, it's just there's no fault. And the number one answer that's come across is that we've grown apart.